Then talked about what takes place on an altar. So I looked up what they did when they sacrificed animals, and it was quite gruesome. It was quite nasty. So it was a great slaughter. They would have to cut them in certain ways. They would have to take out certain parts of the animal. With birds, they would have to cut them and drain the blood from the bird because he couldn't sit on top of the altar. So it was a very gruesome act. So I looked at that and I was like, well, Lord, seems like there's something else there. He said, it is, just keep looking. So the greater thing beyond the gruesome things of a sacrifice is it burns, and it's burning. I said, well, what do you mean by that, Lord? He said, well, whenever offerings were brought, something was killed, but most importantly, it was burned. So I was like, okay, well, I understand, but what's so important about that? And he asked me the question, what in your life needs to be burned away? And I said, okay. And it's the unclean things that we hold on to. And sometimes we look at unclean things as, just sin, but it can be the malice that you have in your heart toward a parent, or your friend, or your spouse, or, the unforgiveness. These type of things, they're all unclean. So I said, all right, give me an example of this. Well, I went to mortuary college. So I've seen many cremations. They're kind of strange, but anyway, I've seen many cremations. So I said, Lord, well, what did you give me that for? He said, well, go through the process of a cremation. And I said, all right. And we're going to tie this into the altar. Cremation, when you put a body into a retort is the cremation machine. When you put a body into the retort, it is between 1,200 and 1,900 degrees. So it's hot. It's very, 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 very hot. So I said, all right, I understand, altar, fire. He said, keep going. I was like, all right. So when you put it in there, the first thing that happens is flesh immediately starts to fall off. I said, okay. He said, you can equate that to if we are altars, there are some things with us. If we are on the altar, then the flesh begins to fall off. So as we are in the fire of our altars, our flesh begins to fall off. I said, okay. So after you do that, you move on. Stays in there a little bit longer, so after all the flesh falls off, then you have the tendons and the muscles and things. And I said, okay, Lord, well, what is that to us? And he said, those are the things that you hold on to, that you don't want to let go. So as you hold on to those things that you don't want to let go, it takes a while to burn through. So when you're going through a cremation, the flesh immediately, it just begins to fall off. But then the things under, it takes a long time for it to burn down. And it's a slow process. It burns very slow. So I said, all right, Lord, I got it. What's the next thing? He said, well, what else do you do with cremation? And I said, well, you just wait. And he said, well, what's left when the cremation is done? And I said, well, bones. And he said, yeah, there's still bones left. And I was like, oh, you're right. So when a cremation is done, well, it's not done, but when everything is burned down, all the bones do not burn all the way down. You have to put them in what you call a grinder. That's why ashes are fine. That's why they're fine. Just to give y'all a little information. When you burn down, then you scoop it, you put it into what they call a grinder. It grinds down what is left, and then that's when you have your cremains, as they are called. So I said, Lord, how do we equate that to us? He said, you have to stay on the altar long enough for everything to burn off. And I said, okay. Okay, you ain't got to talk to me so rough, Lord. But he said, you have to stay on there long enough for things to burn. Since there is no grinder on the altar, what you have to do is you have to stay there long enough for the things to burn. But we don't like to stay there. Then he looked and I said, well, cremation, Lord, hurts. And he said, how does it hurt? And I was like, well, it's a body. He said, they dead, they can't feel it.
That's right, yeah.
And I said, oh, all right. He said, so if you are on your altar, if you are dead to your flesh, if you are dead to these things, you won't feel it.
That's right.
And the reason why we don't like being on altars, and the reason why we don't like being sacrifices is because we ain't dead. We can still feel it. So since we still feel it, we like, oh, Lord, I don't want to do this. He's like, well, you're not dead.
That's right.
That's right.
So you stay on that a little bit longer. You say, Lord, I can still feel it. He said, die some more.
That's right.
Die some more. Keep dying. But we don't want to die. We don't want to die. We want to be the sacrifice, but we don't want to die. We won't feel nothing.
Right.
Bless him. Bless him. Bless him. Bless him. So I asked you today, what are you dying to? Are you on an altar? Are you dying? Do you feel it? If you feel it, you might want to check to see if you're dying or not.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Just check to see if you're dying.